Ask the person next to you, are you a conspiracy theorist? One of those boss terms, but it makes me really wonder, what really is the definition of a conspiracy theorist? Really interesting question, because a conspiracy theorist, it used to be a person with ideas and concept without facts. But now, people can say something and you still call them a conspiracy theorist. Like, I remember a few weeks ago, I watched Bill Gates' video, and he was like, we have a plan of depopulating the planet. I'm like, what? What do you mean by that? How do you depopulate? I'm like, am I part of the people that you want to depopulate? And this is really interesting. Now it's the conspiracy theory to judge people by what they said. You're like, really? Like, you are a conspiracy theorist because you meant what you said? But this is an era of an eroded trust, subjective truth, relative morality. And as a consequence, we no longer know the definition of truth, lies, good, evil, God, devil, conspiracy, or reality. So anything these days can be called a conspiracy theory. It's a really easy and a good way to shut an argument, to win an argument, to label somebody, because that's how it works these days. If you think men cannot get pregnant, guess what? You're transphobe. If you think that you shouldn't kill babies, guess what? You're sexist. If you believe the Bible is not hate speech, guess what? You're a bigot. If you believe that you shouldn't worship government, then you are a conspiracy theorist. If you believe that kids should not be around drag, gay men, drag queens, then you are an exclusive bigot. If you believe that men should lead, then you are a misogynist. There's a word for every single person, for every single belief. It's an easy way to shut down an argument. It's an easy way to label because you don't have substance and content. So you go into labeling, naming, shaming. You're racist, you're misogynist, you're sexist, you're transphobe, you're homophobe, and the list doesn't end of how many labels and names you can give people because you're not willing to find the truth. Or you are willing to be ignorant of the truth because truth is painful and knowledge is depressing. Truth is extremely painful. And the more knowledge you get, the more sorrow you will have because you realize the evil, dark, depraved condition of humanity. And that is the reason we need God, and this is the reason we need the Bible, and this is the reason we need a Savior, and this is the reason we need Jesus. So really, to be called a conspiracy theorist most of the time at this point of time is to really be called a blasphemous. Conspiracy theory is a new modern term for blasphemy. You cannot critique or question the accepted traditional cultic values of our contemporary culture. And if you question it, if you deny it, if you challenge it, if you don't believe in it, then guess what? You are a conspiracy theorist. You are a blasphemous. You are a conspiracy theorist. And this is a funny thing. The media are actually the true conspiracy theorists. They are the false prophet of our time, and they are the fake prophet of our culture. This is really important. Our God-hating, anti-Christian, anti-religion, secular media is on an aggressive journey to demonize and vilify Christianity in order to destroy Christianity. Our anti-God, secular, fake news media is on an aggressive journey to vilify and ruin the reputation of churches in order to empty churches because they have a goal of kicking God out of the public square. And this is how you know someone is a false prophet, is that they keep on predicting a future that doesn't happen. This is really important. People see COVID and climate change and all this stuff. There are Q tests. And sad enough, Australians have really, really low IQ. And this is not just what I say. This is also what stats say. Google quickly, what is the average IQ of an Australian? It's really low. A false prophet is someone that keeps on giving you truth, but it's half truth. So it's not true. Because half truth is not truth.
Come on.
A false prophet is someone that gives you information that is not complete. But more than anything, a false prophet is someone that keeps on predicting a future that never ends up happening. In the Bible, that is called a false prophet. They were prophets that came to the people of God and would tell them, this is going to happen, and that is going to happen, and this amount of people are going to die, and this storm is going to happen, and climate change is going to kill the planet. And it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. That is what a false prophet does. And this is the problem. A lot of people, you have low spiritual intelligence. And as a consequence, you have a low intellectual intelligence. Because your spirit is dark, numb, and blind. So you don't want to face the truth. So the question is, are the media, the radical leftist establishment, the anti-God corporation that are on an aggressive journey to kick God out of the public square, the LGBTQ sex religion that is now being institutionalized to become the religion of the state, that is now being part of the institution to criminalize and bully Christians, are they simply conspiracy theorists? Or are they actually conspirators against Christianity? This is a really, really important question. Is it just a bunch of conspiracy theories, or are they on an aggressive mission to conspire to destroy Christianity? Because the fake news media and the current political establishment and the big government, big corporation, all the big pharma, all the big stuff, they are on an aggressive mission to make you bow down and surrender unconditionally and infinitely to the God of government. And this is really problematic for all my Western people that you grew up here and you always knew culture to be with you. You always knew the values of the culture that you live in as Judeo-Christian family. You always knew that the government is with you and the police is with you and the media is with you and you got all the Judeo-Christian values, and all my white Western pastors, that they never had persecution. They are failing to transition to an era where you are the enemy of the state. They don't want to transition, and that's why they're really blind. They want to see the best when it is the worst. And that is not faith, that is stupidity. Faith has to see reality, and faith has to face the facts. And they always say, the Bible said you should listen to government, and the Bible said you should obey government. The Bible said you should follow the government like here, but is it unconditional obedience? Is it ultimate submission? And is it infinite obedience? It's really a question. Is obedience to the government unlimited? This is a really good question, because it's funny how many people haven't even considered that question. Is our obedience to government unlimited? Is our worship to God on the altar of obedience to government? Is our obedience to government unlimited, unconditional, and with no strings attached? And these are really, really good questions that we have to answer and we have to come to. What do you do when government claims the role of God? What do you do when government becomes an antichrist that is on an aggressive mission to get your worship, not just your simple submission? What do you do when their government is becoming an anti-Christ institution that has a desire for your ultimate full submission, surrender, and worship? And most people don't know how to answer that question, and most people don't know how to deal with that question, and most people are failing it to move to a next season, to a next era, when we are no longer living in Jerusalem, the city of peace, but in Babylon, the city of war. You got to have the discernment to realize when you are in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the city of peace. When the people of God reign with money, wealth, prosperity, and help the nations. But as we jump in Daniel is about a young boy in the midst of the kingdom of Babylon. The kingdom of Babylon is the kingdom of war. And most people are failing to transition to the next era, to the next season, with the fall of a civilization, with the end of an era. They know how to live under King David, but they don't know how to live under King Nebuchadnezzar. Where worship is illegal, where prayer is criminalized, where preaching the gospel is hate speech, and where your kids are the property of the state. We jump in the book of Daniel, and it's a really interesting book because across this book, it's in the midst of the kingdom of Babylon. Again, I said again, the people of God moved from Jerusalem, the city of peace, to Babylon, the city of war. That's why in the end time, the world that you live in is the kingdom of Babylon. It's a city of war under the name of unity. It's a city of one world government. It's a city of imperial cult. It's a city of big government, small God, big government, no God, big government, and no individual. So they get to make the decisions for you. This is exactly what happened in the book of Daniel. We kind of arrive in a moment where the Jerusalem has fallen. The people of God has rejected God. They kept on saying, God will never punish us. God will never do anything to us. So it ended up being carried as captives to the kingdom of Babylon. And Daniel is a prophetic book, and it's a historical book. This is really important. It's a prophetic historical book, meaning it's about what happened, it's about what's happening, it's also about what is yet to happen. And this is the beauty of the Bible. The Bible is not just traditional, historical, the good old days. It's also not just apocalyptic, climate change is coming soon. No. The Bible is a book about what happened, what is happening, and what is yet to happen. So the book of Daniel is the revelation of the Old Testament. All my conspiracy theories, you love the book of Revelation, the dragon and the beast. In the Old Testament, Daniel is the book of Revelation of the Old Testament. The genre of the book is apocalyptic text. It's speaking about what happened, what is happening, what is yet to happen. So it's a prophetic, practical, prophetic, spiritual, prophetic, historical text about where the world is heading. So we kind of jump in Daniel 6 and we see something extremely important. And this is really important because across that particular chapter, you find this tension between the prophets and the politicians. It said Darius the Mede decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces. We're gonna skip a bit more. It said the king also chose Daniel and 2 other administrators. It said Daniel proved himself to be more capable than the others. But because of Daniel's great ability, the king had a plan to elevate. Can I tell you something? You can actually go up in the midst of the kingdom of Babylon. This is the beauty of the people of God, that we are beyond culture. We are beyond empires. We are beyond kingdoms. Australia can't make it without Christianity, but the people of God will make it. It's really important. Christianity will make it to the other side without Australia. Australia would not make it to the other side without Christianity. This is what people fail to realize. Christianity has been through so many demonic, evil, dictatorial governments. Way worse than any one world order. We have been through the imperial Roman cult and we made it. We have been through the Islamic, evil, violent regime and we made it. We have been through the Catholic Church burning people and burning pastors and we made it the other side. We have been through Nazism and communism and we're still here. You can't really destroy Christianity. You really can't, and that's the moral of the story. Our country needs Christianity. Christianity does not need our country. Australia needs Christianity. Christianity does not need Australia. We will make it with or without the establishment, the system, the media, and the people. We are beyond any political ideology. We are beyond any religion. We have made it through worse, and we will make it to the other side. Because no matter who sits on the government throne, Jesus sits on the throne of thrones. We're not part of a democracy. We're part of a kingdom. See, in democracy, you select or elect. In kingdom, you don't get a choice. It's just there. So Jesus is king whether you like it or not. Jesus is king whether you choose it or not. Jesus is king whether you worship it or not. And one day every single person and every single knee will bow to Jesus. And this is really scary for governments, man. That's why Christianity often comes in tension with any power and any politician or any political influence. Because we believe in a God and a king that is bigger, that is higher, that greater. And that's exactly what happened in Daniel 6. We see a moment where prophets and politicians are in tension. Catch it. Politicians will always persecute prophets, and politicians will always go after prophets because politicians are about power. Prophets are about truth. Politicians represent the people. Prophets represent God. Politicians are elected. Prophets are selected by God himself. Politicians make you feel good. Prophets will tell you the truth even if it doesn't feel good. Politicians will give you inspirational speeches. Prophets will tell you the truth, no matter how much it hurts you. And that's why our culture loves politicians and it loves political correctness, because it doesn't like the truth and it doesn't value the truth. I think that is why our culture loves politicians and it hates prophets. Because politicians come from men. Prophets come from God. And that is my question to you. Are you a prophet or a politician? Prophets represent God. Politicians represent men. Prophets represent the will of the king. Politicians represent the will of the people. Prophets will make you do good. Politicians will make you feel good. Prophets will speak the truth no matter how much it hurts you, and this is way deeper. Politicians will speak love, inclusivity, and diversity, and then they will kill babies. And then they will kill your young people at war. And then they will indoctrinate your children with sexual perversion. And then they will have freaky drag queens around your kids. And then they will butcher and cut your kids' organs under the name of gender fluidity. And then they will end up ruining a whole next generation. And they will tell you it's about love and tolerance and diversity. This is the nature of politicians, and this is the nature of politics, because politics is not about truth. Politics is about public perception. This is really important for you to understand. Politics is not about truth. Politics is about public perception. Politics is not about what's right in front of God. Politics is about what is right in front of man. And that's why, as a consequence, you end up never getting to the bottom of the issue. You end up never arriving to the truth. It's never about the truth. The church is about the truth, though. The church is about the truth. It said after it that the other administrators were searching for a fault in the way that Daniel was handling the government. But they couldn't find anything to criticize him. They're like, man, let's find something. It's really awesome. I love what's happening in the moment. Politicians and the political establishment cannot find anything wrong with Christians, so they're changing the law so they can get us in trouble. That's what happened. Like, they're following the law. The only way to get them in trouble, we need to change the law. Don't you love progressive? That's what progressives are. They keep on changing the law to get people in trouble. It said that, but he was faithful, responsible, and completely trustworthy. Other people of God, this is the beauty of living in the kingdom of Babylon, is that you can be faithful, responsible, and completely trustworthy. He made things grow. He made things happen. He was faithful. He owned the project. He didn't just work for man. He worked for God through man. He was responsible. He had high level of integrity that it said the only way for them to catch him, look what it said. It said our only chance to accuse Daniel was with connection to the rules of his religion. See, whenever politicians, the government attack the people of God, it always happens through 4 particular things. And people need to be smart and intentional about it, because people often get confused by the intention, but they miss the impact. What do I mean by that? I said before that COVID was an IQ test. The policy was lockdowns. The intention was to stop a virus. The impact was you became a prisoner. This is really important. Don't confuse the intention with the impact, because the impact is more important than the intention. And this is what happened in the text. The people came to Darius. Why did Darius, the king of Babylon or the king of Persia, received or accepted that verdict? Is because he just took over the nation, so he wanted unity. So the purpose of that policy was unity. So every single person had to bow down to him, and every single person had to accept him, because if they don't, they'll be traitors and disloyal. So this policy was intended to create peace, love, and unity. But the impact was that worshiping and praying to God became illegal. So what politicians do is that politicians will deceive you with the intention and make you miss the impact. Catch this, politicians will make you miss the consequences and deceive you with the purpose. They will make you focus on the intention, and you end up neglecting the practical, real life consequences on the ground. And you need wisdom, discernment, spiritual intelligence, and a bit of brain to get to understand. It's not about the intention, it is actually about the impact. Whenever Christianity becomes criminalized, whenever Christianity becomes illegal, there's 4 particular things that get criminalized. Number 1, prayer. Number 2, worship. Number 3, preaching. Number 4, family. So before you know it, the government wants to be involved in how you pray. In Victoria right now, it's illegal for a pastor to pray to a gay person. It's illegal. It's like, man, I'm praying to God. Why do you want to get involved between me and God? How big do you think you are? You know, I can pray to God and you wouldn't even know it. Australia is one of the first nation in the whole entire Western civilization to criminalize a form of prayer. It's illegal right now in Melbourne to pray for a gay person. And guess what's the intention behind it? To prevent real life harm. Because prayer kills people, right? Have you ever been killed by prayer? Worship. Worship is really important because people don't understand. I don't talk about the LGBTQ sex cult because I don't like them. I talk about it because sex is a matter of worship. People fail to realize sex, identity, and gender. They're not secondary issues to the people of God. They're actually worship issues. Because you worship God with your body. Same as abortion. You worship God with your body. So abortion, sex, gender, identity, they are not secondary issues to the people of God. They are an issue of worship. And preaching gets criminalized under the name of stopping hate speech. And finally, your kids become the property of the state to force them and indoctrinate them into the sexual perversion and sexual identity. And this is exactly what happened. And people are so stupid to get guided by the intention and miss the actual impact. This is really important. COVID policy, lockdown. The intention was to stop COVID. The impact was people did not worship Jesus for 2 years. That's a pretty big deal. That's a really, really, really big deal in case you didn't know. Really, really big stuff. You got this bill that's, stopping criminalization against LGBTQ that's coming through in the next few months. Albo, I love how the media, they attacked ScoMo for going to church. But they praised Albanese for going to Mardi Gras. How crazy that you live in a country and a nation where you can go to Mardi Gras, but it's a sin to go to church. Take it easy, Albanese. He calls himself a non-practicing Catholic. What does it even mean? I'm a non-practicing nun. I'm a non-practicing man. It's like how do you practice something and not be it? But this is the story of people right now. They claim to be something that they don't practice. But you are what you practice. Because you can't claim something and not, so catch this. Our anti-God, anti-truth, anti-church, anti-Christ, demonic media wants people to go to Mardi Gras and it's a virtue, but not to go to church because it's a sin. So your politicians can chill with drag queens, but not with pastors. They can go and celebrate naked, hairy men dancing on the street, but not celebrate the King of Kings. This is the people that you listen to. It's an IQ test. It's a spiritual discernment test. This is the people that tell you what truth is, what truth isn't. What reality is, what reality isn't. This is really important. Because that's the thing, if you want to destroy a culture, if you want to enslave a generation, I'm saying if you want to destroy a culture, if you want to enslave a generation, the best way to do it is to remove, to censor, and to suppress truth. And to intimidate people who are speaking the truth. If you want to enslave a generation, all you need to do is to remove, to censor, to oppress, and to suppress the truth. Because truth is really powerful, but lies are really weak. That's why lies will always suppress truth. Truth doesn't need to suppress anything because truth is like a lion. It can defend itself against any lie. So if you want to control a generation and if you want to control people, all you need to do is to suppress, oppress, and censor and cancel truth. And as a byproduct, you get a monopoly on information and truth. So you end up controlling a whole generation. That's why never, ever, never, ever in the history of humanity have been canceling books, burning ideas, canceling people. Like right now, you know that promo that you guys watch, Conspiracy Theorist? They stopped its promo on Facebook. They told us you can't promote it anymore. It's dangerous information. Never, ever in the history of humanity have been censoring, canceling, burning information, books and truth. On the side of God, on the right side of history, on the right side of what is right, true, just, and fair. Because dictators hate truth. That is why they hate prophets. I'm saying dictators hate truth. That is why they have to oppress and suppress prophets. And as a consequence, they end up suppressing and oppressing churches. Churches. And the spirit of Babylon is really massive because the spirit of Babylon is after creating a totalitarian government of big government and small God. The spirit of Babylon, look what it said in the text. Daniel 6. It said, give orders that for the next 30 days, any human person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, King, your majesty, they will be thrown into the den of the lions. The spirit of Babylon is a spirit of big government, small God. Of big government, no God. Of big government, no human individual. Of big government and no conscience. And that's why the freedom of conscience and the freedom of thought and the freedom of worship and the freedom to worship are really integral to the people of God and particularly to the Christian community, because conscience is the faculty that enables you to choose and unchoose. Conscience is the faculty that makes you choose or unchoose. Conscience is the faculty in your brain that enables you to gather information, to critically analyze, to critically think, and as a consequence, pick the right option. That is why Christianity is really, really big about the freedom of conscience, because when you have the freedom to think and the freedom to choose, you end up blending as the freedom of worship. But the spirit of Babylon is really different. It's after big government, small God. Big government, no God. Big government, small individual. Big government, no individual. So can you pray in public? No. But can you have drag queens in public? Yeah. Wow. Can you read the Bible at schools? No. Can you have drag queens in library? Yeah. Wow. Can politicians go to church? No. But can they go to Mardi Gras? Yeah. can religion get involved in politics? No. But can gays be involved in politics? Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. And this is the heart. So once you remove God out of the public square and once you kick God out of politics, government becomes God. Truth becomes politics. You replace prophets with politicians, and you replace pastors with drag queens, and you replace church with the LGBTQ sex religion. When you kick God out of the public square, you replace prophets with politicians. You replace truth with politics. You replace family with the state. You replace the man leading and providing the household with the government taking care of your family. You replace the church with the LGBTQ family. And you replace pastors with drag queens. And that is exactly what the Spirit of God, Babylon does to catch us. If you continue to choose to be quiet, you will eventually be forced to be quiet. Silence is not a virtue, and this is what happened. Look what happened. Daniel 6 is said that when Daniel learned that the law has passed, Daniel 6:10, he went home. He knelt as usual with the windows wide open. You know, he could have shut the windows. Like, you don't need to make drama about it. He could have just simply went to a different room. He could have, instead, it said that he looked toward Jerusalem. Well, he could have looked the other way. No. He went home. He opened the window. He wasn't ashamed of the gospel. He wasn't. And that compromise is a dangerous sin. Compromise is an invisible sin. It starts so small but ends up so big so quickly. You're like, just don't read that one verse. Just don't talk about that one topic. Just don't think about that thing. Just don't have church on Sunday. Just close the church 1 month. Just don't allow the unvaccinated. Just don't preach a verse. And before you know it, you are completely a different person. Because the point of the conviction is to live by the conviction. When it's inconvenient, when it's illegal, and when it's dangerous. I'm talking the point of the conviction is to live by conviction. And conviction is tested in the times of crisis, and character is tested in the times of trials. Character is about the hill that you're willing to die on. And conviction is about the beliefs that you have that you will choose to die for. So if you continue to be quiet, you will eventually be forced to be quiet. If you continue to be politically correct, it will eventually be illegal for you to speak the gospel. Can I say that one more time? If you continue to be politically correct, the gospel will eventually become illegal to speak. If you continue to be quiet, you will eventually be politically, culturally, legally forced to be quiet. And man, this is your job to have convictions. You know why our world is super wonky? Because a woman's strength is not conviction, strength, and power. A woman's strength is empathy, love, and compassion. And that's exactly what happens when you have a world run by women. Oh, my feminist. You end up losing all your convictions. Because the purpose of a woman is to nurture, is to grow, is to love. The purpose of a man is to be strong and courageous. Courage is about the hill that you're willing to die on. And conviction is the value that you're willing to die for. I'm saying courage is about the hill that you're willing to die on. And conviction is about the values that you're willing to die for. And you are either going to live for nothing or die for something. You're going to either survive for nothing or live for something. So man, it is your job to lead with courage, conviction, and strength. Because the women are not going to do it, and they can't do it. It's not their design, it's not their function, it's not their makeup. That's why God told Joshua to be strong and courageous. Being strong and courageous is a man thing. It's not a man thing. It's beautiful when women act like women, but it's ugly when men act like women. Hey guy, I'm like, no, it's not cute, it's weird. Act like a man. Femininity is beautiful on women. Femininity is ugly on men. And feminism is ugly because it makes feminine women act like men, even though they're not men. So you end up with a surveillance state. The whole COVID pandemic era was a bunch of women running the show. When you have a bunch of women running the show, you will have rules. Like women are really good at running households, but they're not good at running countries. So at the moment, you have a bunch of corporations being run by women who don't have kids to control, so they want to control you. Because the strength of a woman is not leadership. It's not their strength. This is really important. When you have a culture run by women, you end up with lots of laws, lots of rules, lots of safety, lots of precaution, no courage. And actually, you have empathy. But what about courage? Like, have you noticed all the men in our culture now, they act like women because that's what we celebrate. We celebrate men not being men. We celebrate men acting like women. And you end up with leadership in the political sphere. You look at them, you're like, man, you lack courage. You lack every form. Like, leadership is not about empathy. It's about courage. It's not. And courage is about conviction. And this is the problem of compromise. All you need to do is giving a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit. And before you know it, you're in a different religion. Before you know it, you're worshiping a different God. Before you know it, you're in a totally different circumstance. Before you know it, you arrive in a place that you didn't even plan for the moment, because all you need to do is just compromise one little value by one little value, one little bit by one little bit. And before you know it, you're an adulterer. You don't worship God. You worship government. And a lot of churches are silent under the name of love. They're cowards under the name of empathy. They act like women and they think it's virtuous. I said it before, a lot of churches are silent under the name of love. They're cowards under the name of empathy. They're full of feminine male leaders, and that is why they lack the capability to be a man. So man, you either die for something or live for nothing. And that's what conviction is for. And Daniel was a man of God in the public square. That's why people say, Christians should never be in politics. I'm like, actually, Daniel was a prophet politician. He was a prophetic politician in the midst of the public square. So Christians should really actually be involved in politics. They should, because if they don't, then who's supposed to be involved in politics? If the people of God are not running the show, then who will and who should and who would and who could? And you get all these Christians that they hate Trump. I'm like, cool, you can hate Trump as much as you want, but this is the problem. The reason God is using him is because no Christian is stepping up. This is really massive. We have a lot of Christians that lack courage. They lack conviction. But they criticize the non-Christians that have courage and conviction. And if God can't choose you because you're not listening to him, he will end up using a donkey. In the Old Testament, God spoke through a donkey. And the sad reality, we have a lot of non-Christians that are being used by God because the people of God are refusing to be used by God. I'm saying there are a lot of donkeys around being used by God because the people of God are not using by God. You know, and that's what happens when you have women running the show. You end up with like the tone police, not the truth police. People always tell me, I don't like the way you shut up. I'm like, well, is it true? Yeah, then don't worry about it, man. It's just the way you shut up. I'm like, stop being the tone police and start being the truth police. I'm not your wife. That's the biggest problem me and my wife have, is that we're always fighting over the tone. But I'm not married to you. So don't worry about my tone. One of the most interesting things about pragmatic and shallow politics that we live in right now is that most people are driven by personality instead of by character. And this is really important. I think the Trump era was an interesting case for the people of God and any different person, because it kind of showed people are shallow. They hate people's personality instead of looking at their character. Character is more important than personality. See, I don't have a likable personality. I know that. But I'm working on my character. And guess what? God gave me my personality. So I love my personality. Even though you don't like my personality. I'm obsessed with my personality. I'm obsessed with myself. No, I'm joking. This is really important. Politics is about character more than personality. It's about policy more than personality. It's about the policy platform more about the rhetoric. And that's why you have a lot of people that fall for politicians that say the right word at the right place at the right time, but they end up killing babies. Because we have been programmed to not look beyond the words. We have been programmed to not look at the character of the person, but to judge their personality. So you end up with a generation of Christians like, I don't like that Trump guy. I'm like, awesome, don't like him. But he has conviction, courage that most Christians don't have. Did you know, it's really sad. I've been listening to the Trump campaign as he runs for next year. He preaches better sermons than most Christian pastors. Wow. It's really sad when the people that don't know God preach a Bible better than the people that know God. And if God can't raise people of God in the political sphere, he will have to raise anybody or everybody. And that's exactly what happened right here, right now. The people of God lack courage, conviction. So God is using people from the outside with courage and conviction. This is the reason Christianity is the biggest enemy of every single dictator. Because Christians are the only group of people that are not scared of death, and the Christians are the only people that are not afraid of death. The dictator's power, the tyrannical tool of every single dictator is death, because their weapon is fear. This is the problem though, is that Christians are the only groups of people that are not scared of death and they're not afraid of death. That is why over time they become the enemy of every political power, because Christians are not scared of death. And they're not fearful of death. So we're going to feed you to the lions, like whatever, who cares? God is going to protect me. We're going to chuck you in the fire. Well, I'm going to be all right. I'm not scared. We're going to crucify you upside down. Well, I'm all right. I'm not scared. We're going to flog you. We're going to put you in jail. We're going to make you a criminal. This is the power of Christianity. We're not scared or afraid of death. And the COVID spiritual test and the COVID IQ test simply showed that people think they're scared of COVID, but what they're actually scared of is death. That's right. That's right. People think they are scared of COVID, but what they're actually scared of is death. And this is really, really important. People say that COVID brought fear and anxiety and scared people. I'm like, no, that's not true. COVID heightened the anxiety that was already there. COVID heightened the fear that was already in the people. People have been so scared of death all of their life. People have been running from death all of their life. And anxiety have been running crazy. Like anxiety is one of the biggest issues of our culture. Everybody is anxious. Everybody is scared. And anxiety have been running crazy. And COVID didn't create an anxiety. COVID heightened people's anxiety. Because they haven't dealt with the most important question of life, death. So they have been running and running. They have been gapping it from death. And they don't even know, and they don't even understand if God wants you dead, he can kill you. There's a lot of ways to kill people in Australia. You can die from a heart attack. You can get a little cancer and you're gone. You can die on a plane on your way to your holiday. You can die by a deadly snake. There's a lot of them in Australia. You can die by a crocodile. You can die by a shark. You can die by a spider. You can get food poisoning and die. There are so many ways for you to die, and if God wants you dead, I'm telling you, you will be dead. Oh, my bad drivers, can I get an amen? If God wants you dead, you will be dead. So like COVID, fear. I'm like, relax. God is in control. Relax. And that's why people flooded for saviors and answers. Vaccine, mask, politician. Who can save me from death? I'm like, nobody can save you from death. You can postpone it, but you can't stop it. See, that's why Christians become the enemy of every single civilization. The Roman imperial cult, communism, Nazism, Islam. Because the one force, the one tyrannical tool of power of every single dictator is the fear of death. And they use it to manipulate you. They use it to stop you. They use it to intimidate you. But Christians, we're not scared of death. We got chucked in the lions, but we made it. We can get burnt at a stake and we'll still worship Jesus. We can be crucified and we will still worship Jesus. Because nothing can separate us from the love of God. No persecution, no hunger, no injustice, no oppression, no death. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. One of my second favorite moment of the Trump era was when he got COVID, if you guys remember. I'm not sure if it was fake or not, who knows. When he came back, he went to the top of the White House and he had his mask and he put it off. See, for an atheist secularist, this is scary. See, he was a 73-year-old man, 73 or 74, I'm not sure, 70 something. So he had a really high chance of dying from COVID. Like if you're under 60, your chance of dying from COVID is like 0.3. If you're above 60, your chance goes to like all the way to 1 to 3%. So it's at least, it's a lot more, at least 10 times more. This crazy guy went and he took his mask off. And the media went crazy. He's killing people. No, but this is the thing. Secularization of culture have created a scared, fearful, anxious people. I'm saying the more a culture becomes anti-God, it becomes anxious, fearful, scared of death. So they end up worshiping anything and worship everything that would give them life. That's why Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and life. And Christians, we're not scared of death. Amen. We're not afraid of death. That one weapon is already defeated. We will rise again one more day. Death is not something to be afraid of. So you will either fear death or fear God. You can't fear both. So the people that don't fear God fear death. The people that don't fear death fear God. And that's why Daniel went and he opened the window and he prayed. He opened the window and it said he prayed 3 times. It's like, what if he did it one time? Like, man, just it's only 30 days. Like, he could have prayed, like, outside of the city. He could have prayed in the toilet. No, it said that Daniel went, he opened the window as usual towards Jerusalem. And it said that those politicians came to look at him. He knew they were looking, and he still did it. He still did it. And it said he didn't just pray, it said he prayed 3 times as usual. He didn't drop the routine. He didn't drop the conviction. He didn't drop his faith. He didn't drop his courage. He went for it. The one tool every dictatorial government have over people is death. This is the tool. Their tool is fear, and all people are afraid of death. It is easy to control any group of people who are afraid of death. And that's why Christianity is the most persecuted and hated group of people in the last 2,000 years since its initiation. Did you know that? All my feminists, all my black people, all my person of color, all my gays, all my trans, do you know the most killed people every single day? It's not LGBTQ, it's not gays, it's not homosexuals, it's not people of color, it's actually Christians. Every single day, 13 Christians die for their faith. But you don't see it on the news. Every single day, the most persecuted group in the history of the world in the last 2,000 years, it's not Muslims, it's not gays, It's not black people. It's not Aboriginals. It's not gay people. It's not Asians. It's actually Christians. Every single day, 13 Christians die for their faith. How great that we have a word for everything. For the homos, we have homophobia. For the trans, we have transphobia. For the women, we have sexism. For the Islam, we have Islamophobia. We have for, all the other cultures, we have xenophobia. I'm like, how come we don't have Christian phobia? We have a word for everything except Christians. What a joke. What a joke. Every single day, 13 Christians at least die for what they believe in Africa, Middle East, and Asia. Every single day. But it's not on the news. We have every single sin. We have transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, sexism, racism, xenophobia. But for Christians, we got no word. And the news doesn't cover it. Across time and space and culture, evil dictatorial governments and monsters rose against Christianity. The Roman imperial cult under Nero, Islam under Muhammad, a violent, aggressive religion. Communism under Karl Marx and the leftist establishment in Australia. Bullying, persecuting, oppressing Christians who dare to speak. Nazism under Hitler. Christians are the most persecuted, oppressed, and killed people. But we don't act like victims. See, that's what happened in the world. When you act like a victim, everybody gives you attention. I'm impressed. I'm like, how many gay people died in the last year because of being gay? Not as much as Christians. It's simply not true. This is the issue. Christians are the most persecuted group of people. Christians are persecuted in at least 150 countries across the world. Every single day, a Christian is killed for believing in Jesus Christ. 13 Christians, at least on average, are killed every single day. No minority or group of people in the whole entire world is oppressed as much as Christians. But nobody talks about it. Because Christians are not afraid of death. We're not fearful, anxious about death. So your freedom comes from God, not from government. Your freedom comes from above, not from men. Because freedom is not a privilege given by government. Freedom is a human right given to every single human under my voice. Freedom does not come from government. It comes from man. You were born free. And that's why Christianity is about freedom and the gospel is the gospel of liberty. Secularism has a goal of your safety. Christianity has a goal of your freedom. And when you know the truth will set you free. Just because something is illegal, it doesn't mean it's immoral. And just because something is legal, it doesn't mean it's moral. Actually, a lot of times across time, space, history, and culture, what was legal was evil. And what is illegal was good. I'm saying across most time, space, history, and culture, what was legal was evil. And what was illegal was moral. So morality is not measured by legality. Morality is measured by the word of God. Morality does not come from government. Morality comes from God. Morality, right and wrong, does not come from your favorite politician. Morality comes from the Bible. I'm saying morality does not come from government. That's why even though something might be illegal, even though something might be unaccepted, even though Christianity might be illegal in a country, God will still judge you based on the conscience that He has given you. See, I grew up in a Muslim country. It was illegal for you to convert. If you convert from Islam to Christianity, you get killed or tortured. You and the person that converted you. That's the reason why my dad here at the front, the reason why he is because he wanted to kill us for converting Muslims to Christians. This is the reason. When people, Islam is a religion of peace. I'm like, no, why am I here? Why am I here, man? Send me back. God will judge people based on the conscience that he has given them, even though it was illegal for them to be Christian, even though it was illegal for them to accept Jesus. That's why your morality can never come from government. It cannot come from law. It cannot come from culture. It cannot come from people, because one day you will stand in front of the living God and give an account. One day you will stand in front of God and give an account on the conscience that he has given you. And you will not be able to run away from it. That's why freedom is a Christian value. And as a people of God, we are pro-freedom. Freedom is so big for us because freedom enables people to have the freedom to think, to choose, and to be Christian. See, government is a horrible God because government forces you to do stuff. Christianity, it gives you the option. See, Christianity is not that bad because Christianity gives you the option to use your mind, your conscience, your spirit, and your soul to say, that's not for me. So God will give you freedom. Government will coerce you. God will ask you. The government will manipulate you. God will ask you to do something, the government will force you to do something, and if you don't, there will be consequences. Quickly on the screen, I'm going to go through the process, what freedom is. It's really important because it's one of the biggest lost values of the Western civilization. The reason people in the West don't value freedom because they have freedom. The people that value freedom the most are the people that didn't have it or never had it. People like me, I grew up in a country where you couldn't preach a gospel on the street. It was illegal. You couldn't invite people to church. It was illegal. You couldn't post about Jesus on Facebook. It's illegal. You couldn't speak about Jesus in the public square. Illegal. You couldn't change your religion. It's illegal. People that value freedom are the people that grew up with no freedom. And the problem with freedom is that most people realize how precious and important it is when they lose it. And when they realize that, it's most of the time too late to know that freedom is one of the most, if not the most precious virtue of a civilization. I'm saying freedom is one of the most, if not the most, one of the most important qualities of a good civilization. And that's why the Anzacs, all my army people, people died for your freedom. Sacrifice creates freedom. Happy Anzac Day. We love you. Sorry that the government puts more LGBTQ flags than Australia flag.
Yeah, that's right.
Freedom is precious. A lot of people traded freedom for safety during COVID because they don't want people to die, even though people died for freedom. This is such a paradoxical, funny one. I'm like, people got rid of freedom so people won't die during COVID, but people died for you to have freedom. So both ways people are going to die. The question is, are they going to die for freedom or die being anti-freedom?
That's right.
I'm going to go through the Christian worldview. Number one, you will have this personal individual human rights. Every single individual, you are made imago Dei, in the image of God, for God. You have the freedom to choose. That's why the Bible does not coerce you, does not manipulate you, does not force you. It will give you the way of life and the way of death. You choose. And out of that comes two really important things: the freedom of thought and the freedom of conscience. So catch this human rights, this imago Dei, free will, Genesis 2. You are free to eat from every fruit of the garden except the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. If you do, you will die. Out of that, you get this freedom of thought and freedom of conscience. People always say Christianity is about slavery. I'm like, no. Christianity is about freedom.
Yeah, it's good.
The gospel is literally called the gospel of liberty.
Yeah, it's good.
Freedom of thought and freedom of conscience. What does that mean? You have the freedom to critically think. You have the freedom to analyze. You have the freedom to critique, to question, to choose, to follow your own God-given conscience. Because when you go to heaven, all my atheists, you will be judged on your conscience. That's why conscience is a really important faculty in the Christian faith. It's really, really important because conscience enables you to pick the gospel and reject God. That is the faculty. I'm saying conscience enables you to pick Jesus or reject Jesus. Conscience enables you to do what is right and what is wrong. And when government takes away conscience, you lose your moral conscience. Dangerous stuff. That's what Hitler did, by the way, in the Nazi era. He removed people's conscience. Conscience became, if the government said do it, do it. Let's kill Jews. Yeah, well, the government said it. When your conscience is gone, dangerous stuff. And God is not going to judge you on the government laws. He's going to judge you on your conscience. You cannot stand in front of God and say, well, the government told me. That's not how this works in heaven. Out of the freedom of thought and the freedom of conscience comes really two important freedoms. The freedom of worship and the freedom to worship. You're free to worship any God you want. If you want to worship sex, go for it. If you want to worship homosexuality, go for it. Whatever you want to worship, go for it. And then finally you get the two really good freedoms. Freedom of speech and freedom to express yourself and your belief. So catch it, the freedom of worship. You can worship money, materialism, power, government, sex, pleasure, your race, your culture, and your color. You can worship your sex, your preference, your gender expression, or you can worship God. That's your choice. The freedom of worship, the freedom to worship, and that comes out of conscience. That's why if you want people to worship something, you just need to remove their conscience. And before you know it, they're worshiping government, not God. And that's exactly what happened in the Daniel moment. The conscience was removed by a law and by a policy. And finally, you end up with the freedom of speech, the freedom to speak your mind, the freedom to speak your faith, and the freedom to preach the gospel. And this is the freedom of religion. All my lefties, they hate that idea, the freedom of religion. I'm like, you are free to believe and think whatever the heck that you want. I'm going to talk about in a few weeks that why you should vote no for the voice of the parliament. Because Christianity is about freedom of speech for all, not for some. Nobody should get more voice than other. See, freedom of speech is really important for the people of God because freedom of speech allows the people of God to preach the gospel and teach the truth. Freedom of speech allows people with no power to speak against people with power. Freedom of speech allows the victim to speak against the oppressor. Freedom of speech allows people with no money to speak against big media and corporation that will silence them. Free speech allowed the most vulnerable to speak. That's why free speech is important. It's so important. As the people of God, we value the freedom of speech because it enables us to preach the gospel. It also enables oppressed and victim minorities to speak. You know, the LGBTQ sex religion, they're acting so oppressed when they are on every single TV channel. It's like, if you are on TV, you're not oppressed. You're not oppressed. The person who's oppressed, the person that can't get on TV. What freedom of speech does, it allows you to speak. So as the people of God, we value, and out of this comes this full freedom. The freedom to gather, go to church. During COVID, that was gone. The freedom to move. It was replaced by secularism with lockdowns. The freedom to work. See, God created you to work. Work is a human right. The first thing God told Adam, work the ground. See, you were created to work, and that's why people got depressed during the lockdowns. Because God didn't create sit at home and watch TV. God created you to work. And finally, it's the freedom to raise your children in the way of the Lord. That's now being replaced by government-enforced sex indoctrination. Catch this. The spirit of Babylon is a spirit of kids' indoctrination. Other land, I'm going to be done in a few minutes. The spirit of Babylon is a spirit of kids' indoctrination. It has a goal of indoctrinating little kids to reject their God. Look what Nebuchadnezzar said in the Bible. It's really important. Nebuchadnezzar came and he said in Daniel 1, bring me some young men. The spirit of Babylon is after your kids, but it's particularly after the people of God's kids. The spirit of Babylon, it comes on a nation, it comes to a people, and it has a goal, it has a mission of indoctrinating kids to reject and hate God. Look, he said, bring me some young men. I'm like, what about the old men? He's like, don't worry about them. Wow. Kill them. Wow. Because you can't teach an old dog a new trick. Yeah. You can't teach old people sexual perversion. They know it's wrong. Wow. You have to go for the kids. Because the kids are malleable. The kids don't know what's going on. Because you can't teach an old dog a new trick. You can't teach old people that men can get pregnant. Wow. That's crazy. But you can teach kids to do that. And this is really important because Nebuchadnezzar said, teach them the literature and the language of the time. How do you indoctrinate kids? Two things. Literature, which is stories and narratives. Or my art students, you are indoctrinated at university. And language, homophobia, sexphobia, racism, homophobia, transphobia, all these buzzwords. That's how we indoctrinate people. You control their language and the literature. So young people, instead of living by the good news, they end up living life through the fake news. I'm oppressed, I'm homosexual and people hate me, I'm trans, and this is really important. The spirit of Babylon doesn't just give you a new literature and a new language. It gives you a new label, name, and identity. Daniel was called Daniel, meaning God is my judge. He was named Belshazzar, meaning the one who worships the god Bel. Friend, young people, Gen Z, I came to tell you right now, the devil has been renaming you. The devil has been relabeling you. The devil has been on an aggressive journey to give you a new name and a new title, because the new name represents your identity. The new name represents your destiny. The new name represents your future. That's why he teaches you at school. Public schools are indoctrination camps. I'm saying public schools are sexual grooming indoctrination camps. And universities produce experts who hate God and hate Christianity. I went to university for 7 years. That's why they taught us to hate God and to hate Christianity. That is what the spirit of Babylon does. It teaches your children to hate God and reject God. And Gen Z, catch this. You have been manipulated. You have been labeled. You have been renamed. And the same way King Nebuchadnezzar called Daniel Belshazzar, they're calling you, you're not a Christian, you're gay, you're homosexual, you're trans, you're bisexual, you're biceps, you're bipolar, you're pansexual, you're pancake, you're a two-spirited animal frog, you're bi-gender, you're not gender bender. You have been renamed, relabeled, indoctrinated, and you don't even know it, because if the devil can rename you, he will change your destiny. Names are really important because names represent identity. Names are really important because names represent destiny. Names are really important because names will make your destiny. That's why God will call you something. So young people, you're not gay, you're a Christian. You're not homosexual, you're a Christian. You're not bisexual, you're a Christian. You're not Aboriginal, you're a Christian. You're not Arab, you're a Christian. You're not gender bender, you're a Christian. You're not pansexual and pancake, you're a Christian. You are a Christian.